In the previous part, Li Changxian arrived at his house and saw his mother who was preparing breakfast. A few moments later, Li Changxian's family was seen gathered at the dining table. According to Li Changxian, the reason he rarely gets together with his family is because his father's family is a family conglomerate. Li Changxian's father owned a large hospital, and his mother's family consisted of educated people who worked in prominent industries. Li Changxian's older brother is studying at medical university, and his older sister is proficient in music and has won many awards. Compared to them, Li Changxian, who had a competitive spirit and was obsessed with games since childhood, was always treated like an outsider in his family. With a sad face, Li Changxian said in his heart, they should be worried about my disappearance after a few days back with clothes and a sluggish face like this. So why do they look like nothing happened? After his brother and sister finished breakfast, the two of them immediately left. However, after the two of them left, his father, who had looked relaxed before, suddenly slammed on the table. His father looked very annoyed and angry and said to Li Changxian when the Jamsil gate or something suddenly opened, "Did you know your mother fainted? People went looking for you, and they said that maybe you were trapped inside that gate because you were worried that your eldest brother would call all the hospitals in Seoul, and your older sister also went looking for your mother to the extent that she couldn't attend her trip abroad. But after disappearing for a few days, you suddenly appeared looking like a bum, and all you did was eat. Animals just don't behave like you. If your behavior continues like this, don't stay here anymore. Stop causing trouble to your mother and siblings." Li Changxian's mother, who saw this, tried to mediate and break them up, but Li Changxian just sat silent and couldn't say anything. Then his father left with a single tear and immediately took his bag and left the house as if he didn't want to hear excuses from Li Changxian. Hearing his father's words earlier, Li Changxian felt guilty, and he said to himself, if I was really careless, I was just waiting for my family to worry about me, but I never thought of approaching them first. Then his mother tried to calm Li Changxian, told him to rest, and went into the room. With guilt, Li Changxian apologized to his mother. He also said that in the future he will be even more careful. In Li Changxian's room, there was a lot of trash and drink bottles scattered. Seeing this, Li Changxian immediately cleaned it up. A few moments later, it was seen that he had finished cleaning his room and lay down. While lying down, Li Changxian remembered the previous incident, that his family was still worried about him. From there, Li Changxian thought to do what he could do now. Then Li Changxian got up and said to himself, I have to show them that now I have changed. If I am not a drunk who troubles other people anymore, I will prove that I am adults who can take care of themselves. If I focus on becoming a player, I am sure that slowly but surely my family will open their hearts. And Li Changxian also thought about continuing his next plan, which is to face the Void Monarch. Void Monarch is one of Li Changxian's sworn enemies who came during God's punishment trial. Li Changxian still vividly remembers how he laughed, but it won't be easy to deal with it. Because of that bastard, very cunning, he is a person as fierce as a tiger who is very quick to catch something and also had a lot of subordinates. Then Li Changxian looked at his cell phone and saw a notification that the White Tiger clan would be holding a new player selection. According to Li Changxian, the Void Monarch is the protective constellation of the White Tiger clan and also the #1 big clan in Korea. It was obvious they were very strong because Li Changxian realized that he still didn't have enough strength to start a war. He was determined to destroy the Void Monarch bit by bit from below without him noticing, and made his preparations within a month. A while later, Li Changxian went to a forest and entered the forest. In the forest, he was seen injuring his hand with his dagger and then carving a runoff steel into each tree trunk using his blood. After successfully carving runoff steel, each tree trunk creates an invisible barrier. Inside the barrier, Li Changxian took off his clothes because he didn't want to worry his parents anymore. Then Li Changxian opened his inventory and chose a bone spear from the ribs of the Fire Mountain God, a small shield from the skull of a fire salamander, poisoned fangs of a bloody mamba, claws of a fire tiger, the poisoned ice lung of the ice kite, the stinging tail of the burrowing scorpion, and the poisoned organ of the plague spider. All of these are ingredients for a heat of 8 trigrams. Previously in the netherworld, to be precise, in the place where he was studying to get poison immunity from the First Elder. The First Elder said that poison is the best fire starter to create a powerful fire. Pure fire energy accumulates in the body. Fire is usually known as a poison repellent and evil destroyer because of its cleansing properties. Fire has become a specialist in cleansing. After a dangerous foreign object enters their body, they will immediately be burned to the ground, and the stronger the foreign object that enters, the more intense the fire will burn it. That's the only way to get the heat of 8 trigrams. According to Li Changxian, because he had accumulated a lot of fire, he started from his heart. It looked like the bloody mamba's poisonous fangs entered his heart. The poison spread quickly because Li Changxian endured the extreme pain. He managed to get the snake poison gene. From now on, he can produce bloody mamba poison in small quantities. 50,000 karma was successfully added to achievement points. It wasn't enough that the fire tiger's claws entered his heart and intestines to make Li Changxian's eyes turn red from enduring the pain. After that, he inserted the stinger tail from the burrowing scorpion into his pancreas. It seemed that green poison began to spread throughout the body. Then he squeezed and drank water from the poisonous Plagas spider organ until it entered his lungs. You could see black-green poison spreading throughout the body while opening his mouth, and Changsun said to himself, a little more. Just a little more. A system notification appeared saying that you must get treatment immediately. If you continue, you will die. And after that, it was seen that a small light appeared in Li Changxian's mouth until the light enlarged and fire came out of his mouth. The fire burned the poison that was in Li Changxian's body before. A few moments later, it was seen that Li Changxian's body returned to normal, as if he had been reborn, and then many system notifications appeared saying you have succeeded in igniting the legendary holy fire, which has long lost heat of 8 trigrams. You get the ability to use heat of 8 trigrams, energy vein, culmination point, vein all open magic power. Your organs are restored. You get brazier magic power. You get fire and poison attribute. Achievements were also obtained. With a very happy face, he said, I've finished getting immune to 10 types of poison. Then he opened the system window, seeing he has a new skill, namely blood poison, and has a new effect. With a happy smile, he said, next let's look for weapons. The story moves on a road. To be precise, in the car. It can be seen that in the car there are members of the association that lead to Li Changxian's house. Arriving at where Li Changxian lived, Chaeyun looked surprised because there was already someone who was faster from the association, namely a member of the White Tiger clan. A few moments later, Chaeyun and his friends sat down. The man with the mustache said, it seems that the value of Para Rocky has started to increase recently, to the extent that the leader and head of the association came here. Chaeyun replied, it's a different story if what we talk about is Super Rocky. And in Chaeyun's heart said the face of the White Tiger clan who has the strongest combat power in Korea from the ride team named Seo Young Kwon. He was a man who wore a fake mustache because he assumed that all great people must have mustaches. A 5-star clan was formed by cooperating with a large 5-star company and grew into the largest clan in a short period of time. Their head of human resources named Wu Yonggun, but Li Changxian is only one person. I will make sure no one can recruit him, even if forced. Then after them both talking, suddenly the two of them were insistent on getting Li Changxian. Recruit my son. But that's something my own son has to decide. So I can't decide, but I have something else I want to ask you guys. I was told that our son spent the last 5 days in the Jamsil dungeon. Can you tell me about what he was doing there? Then the story moves to Li Changxian. He goes to the Sungso area. According to Thanatos, there is a swordsmith who can meet your needs. He is the legendary swordsmith. Then Li Changxian stopped at a place that was closed more than 5 years ago, according to the people around him. Even so, from the gap in the hollow door, Li Changxian smelled divine fire, which meant a furnace was being lit. Even though it was locked, Li Changxian casually opened the door, and then Li Changxian entered the place among the many types of weapons. Li Changxian picking up a rusty sword looks too worthless to be used as a weapon, but Li Changxian's face looked happy to see this sword, like there was something extraordinary about this sword. Suddenly from behind there is someone who brought a dog and said, who are you? Li Changxian looked back and said to himself, huh, blind people. A few moments later the two of them sat here. Li Changxian explained that he had come here to forge weapons. Hearing that, the owner of this place said, you're such a funny guy. You still asked me to forge a sword after seeing my condition like this. Why do you trust me so much? While heading to the door he said, if you're here just to make fun of me, you better get out of here. This blacksmith already closed long time. Then Li Changxian said something that made the owner of this surprised. Li Changxian said, even though you said this place is closed but your furnace is being used, it seems you are in need of money. I will give you 10 billion won every time my request is done. And when finished I will give you the remaining 50 billion won. Give me your account number. After given his account number, Li Changxian gave 10 billion won to the owner of this place. And of course that was only a down payment, not all of it, said Li Changxian. Then with a timid tone of voice but willing, the owner of this place asked for another 5 billion won to pay off the rent for this place. Hearing that Li Changxian easily sent that much money, and Li Changxian asked from now on call himself boss. A while later the owner of this place listened to Li Changxian's request, so the weapon Li Changxian wanted was a 5-meter long whip, spear, length that can be assembled, 5 large axes, 1 hand axe, 4 different types of swords, a shield, an armor, an arrow, and several bows. Hearing this, the owner of this place said that he couldn't make that much, but Li Changxian didn't care what he said. Instead he sent another 100 million won for the price of the ingredients. The owner of this place was angry. He said, we just met, why do you believe this, bro? Plus I'm a blind person unsuited as a blacksmith. Hearing those words, Li Changxian replied, do you think that subordinates have the right to question their boss decisions? You make the item and I pay for it. In the end the owner of this place also agreed to Li Changxian's request, but the reason he said that he couldn't make that much was because he needed a special hammer to use his forging furnace. He didn't have that hammer. Here the owner of this place explains again that he actually used to have that hammer, the hammer his father used to use. After his father died, his senior, a former student of his father, stole the hammer and joined one of the 10 strongest clans, Haya. Hearing this, Lee Changsin immediately stood up and said he would get the hammer back. The owner of this place also looked worried because the place where his senior was very dangerous. But Lee Changxian casually answered, "No problem. I just need to kill everyone there so that no evidence is left behind." The owner of this place was amazed by Lee Changxian's words. For some reason he was sure that Lee Changxian could do it. The owner of this place also told the location, in a tomb near Jingryanggu in Seoul. A few moments later, Lee Changxian arrived at the place. It was seen that the place was guarded by several people using firearms. Before doing the action, Lee Changxian texted his mother so he wouldn't worry. Then he found out about the Hyof clan. It turned out that the Hyof clan was connected to drugs, slavery, alcohol, kidnappings, and even assassination attempts. Seeing that, Lee Changxian said they are all trash. Then Lee Changxian took a mask from inside his jacket. The mask was called Laughing Mask and used it so that his identity was not known. Then he also put on a dagger made from ice kite feathers and said that he was not satisfied if he just killed them. Then Lee Changxian threw his dagger and stabbed the head of the person guarding the tomb. When the dagger hit the person's head, his dagger instantly froze the people. After freezing them, Lee Changxian immediately slashed them to pieces. Because there were still 2 people who froze, Lee Changxian injured his hand and stuck his hand to the 2 people. Apparently it was an ice poison reinforced with blood poison. The poison also enters their bodies to death with unbearable pain. After that, Lee Changxian entered the tomb and the system notification said you entered the dungeon of Bisla's tomb because Lee Changxian used the Laughing Hao mask. He got visions that could see clearly in the dark tomb. Then the dungeon mission appears: defeat the guard guarding the Bisla tomb and steal the treasure in the last room where the owner of the tomb is buried. This tomb is divided into 3 parts. In each part there are several items that have been installed to protect this tomb. When he walked in, Lee Changxian suddenly realized someone was hiding behind him and told him to get out because he had been found out. That person came out of hiding. Turns out he was the current dungeon administrator, Harold. And without further ado, Lee Changxian immediately asked a question that made the administrator surprised. "Did you follow me to be able to write a report?" With a surprised face, he said in his heart, "The report is a complete record of the evaluation results made in the administration department about the target the gods are currently interested in. How can Rocky know about that?" Instantly his face changed as if nothing happened, and then said, "It seems you have extraordinary knowledge compared to other Rocky. Then I will add it to your report." But his face that looked happy before changed again to that of someone who was panicking. He said deeply his heart, "Lee Changxian is currently a rising Rocky and a topic of conversation in the realm of gods. So many gods and constellations asked for his report. I silently followed him, but he could feel my presence. Then he also knows the importance of reports. Right now I'm writing half the report. If the right of skill or possession of a skill that is obtained from the dungeon is given to another administrator, what should I do?" Suddenly Lee Changxian said, "About the right of skill, you can take it too. But in exchange, grant my request. I'll tell you later before I leave this dungeon." The administrator agreed to Lee Changxian's request. However, because Lee Changxian doesn't easily believe the administrator's words, he makes a contract, which means that if it is violated at that moment, which person will be taken and those who break it will not be able to use magic again. Any contracts have been made. The administrator was surprised again. How can he talk about which contract again? After that, the Lee Changxian went towards the inside of the tomb and the very administrator followed him. The story moves to the place where the key to open the door to the last boss room is made. It was seen that someone was angry. He was Lee Yi-seung, the head of the Tomb Conquest Agency. And the Hyof clan. The reason he was angry was because his group failed again to open the door to the last room. Then he called his group to call someone. It turned out that he was Jin Dh1, a former student of the Guyaja blacksmith who stole the hammer and ran away. Here Jin Dh1 begs for mercy and asks for more blood. Hearing reasons like that again, Lee Yi-seung, who was sick of kicking Jin Dh1 in the face. The reason is because everything has been given to Jin Dh1, starting from the sacrifice of people and the furnace, but his work always fails. Lee Yi-seung, who said that now there is no more reason to kill you. I also risk getting fired, you bastard. Hearing this, Jin Dh1 was frightened and again he asked for mercy to be given another chance. Lee Yi-seung also agreed to Jin Dh1's request, but if it failed, the bet was Jin Dh1's life. Then Lee Yi-seung was surprised because a system notification appeared that said the ranking system appears. Because there is data from other players, it can be seen that Saint's Agile rank is still ranked 57. On the other hand, where the administrator was, he was seen writing a report about Lee Changxian. Then while talking to himself, the administrator ran again. Because Lee Changxian quickly finished the first 2 areas in less than 30 minutes in each area. Like the moment a gigantic iron ball was about to hit him, Not only did he slice the ball with just a single slash, he also parried countless traps as if he had memorized every location and mechanism of those traps. Talents, senses, traits, or characteristics, he has everything. It was possible that the great constellations of the 12 zodiacs or the gods of the 28 mansions would be interested. This player's formidable talent and strength reminds me of someone in the past twilight of the gods. Surely some gods will be angry reading this report. After successfully passing through Li Changxian's trap, he arrived at a place that gave off a pungent smell of blood. Apparently it was the corpses of the people who were sacrificed to open the last boss room. Then from the left side of Li Changxian came the voices of people who were angry. It turned out to be the voices of members of the Hyoff clan who were bringing people to be sacrificed. When they were talking, suddenly Li Changxian attacked them by freezing them and smashing them into pieces. Then from Li Changxian's right there was a member of the Hyoff clan who attacked. Seeing that, Li Changxian immediately cut off his left arm. After that, Li Changxian immediately stabbed his upper right arm. The Hyoff clan member cried and begged for mercy. Li Changxian immediately said, "You still want to live? Then tell me all the information you know." After telling all the information he knew, Li Changxian said to himself, "So there are 30 people preparing for the ritual, and among them I only need to be wary of the man named Li Yixing." After that, the members of the Hyoff clan apologized and asked for help to be saved. But Li Changxian didn't give mercy as he took out dagger and made an attacking move. He said, "I'm just asking if you want to live, not spare your life." And that person died. After that, Li Changxian used his power, namely soul collection, to see the corpses of people who the dead begin to disappear and turn to ashes. Then absorbed by Li Changxian, later Li Changxian ordered the people who were sacrificed earlier to go that way. After passing through the 2 doors on your left, explore the hallway beside it. Then the 3rd door will open and hide behind that door. Those people followed Li Changxian's order and hid behind that door. On the other hand, there were 3 people who were sent by Li Yixing to look for Li Changxian's whereabouts. Then from behind there was Li Changxian who attacked them, and KABOOMMM. The sound of the explosion was heard where Li Yixing was. Suddenly the dungeon ranking changed. The Li Changxian dungeon ranking changed continuously until it reached rank 2. Li Yixing looked panicked at this. Then from Li Yixing's left someone appeared asking for help. He was an assistant manager named Sun. From his stomach to his cheeks, a rune-off explosion was written, and the rune-off explosion exploded right in front of Li Yixing's eyes. It turned out that the explosion had been mixed with poison. Not just a wound, the fuel that Li Yixing received also received acid poison and poisoned corpses. From the former explosion that was still emitting fire, suddenly Li Changxian appeared and attacked Li Yixing. But Li Changxian's attack was successfully pushed over by Li Yixing. Li Yixing responded by attacking blindly. While dodging backwards, Li Changxian said to himself, "The poison should be blocking his sight, but he can still follow my movements just by using his instincts. It seems he is indeed strong enough." Then, because the poison began to spread and Li Yixing was enduring the unbearable pain, he stopped for a moment. Then, because help from their headquarters would soon come, Li Changxian intended to end this quickly. He also uses 30 points to increase strength and 30 points to increase dexterity. After that, Li Changxian gave the antidote or anecdote to Li Yixing. The believing Li Yixing took and opened the antidote. Turns out it was empty. Suddenly from behind, Li Changxian started to attack. See thing that Li Yixing got angry and swung his sword at Li Changxian. But Li Changxian avoided it by jumping. When he jumped, Li Changxian made a fast stabbing motion. Even though it was successfully pushed away, it could be seen from Li Yixing's face that he was not strong enough to hold it. The battle between the two of them was really fierce. Even though it was only attacking and defending, Li Yixing was made to retreat by Li Changxian, until Li Yixing's sword broke due to receiving continuous attacks from Li Changxian. Seeing that Li Changxian with his fast movement, he slashed Li Yixing's body, and in the end he died. After he died, Li Changxian activated his power, namely the Prayer of Soul Collection. It can be seen that Li Yixing's corpse disappeared and was absorbed by Li Changxian. As a result of absorbing as much as 6%, the stamina was successfully restored. Then the system notification said, "Old constellations of the Twilight or Minerva are deeply impressed by your sense of justice. The constellation gives privileges or privileges, namely inner peace or peace of mind. People who have this privilege will not be afraid of danger whatsoever." Li Changxian looked surprised because the constellation of the Twilight or Minerva gave him inner peace even though he wasn't a messenger or something. Li Changxian walked towards the room of the last boss. Arriving at the door of boss's room, Li Changxian took out a bone spear and threw it towards his right. The attack succeeded in hitting someone. Apparently it was Jin Dh1, who was hiding, and he died. Then Li Changxian picked up his hammer. After that, Li Changxian focused on opening a door that this Hyoff clan had been trying to open for years. Apparently there is the easiest way to open this door. Li Changxian called the administrator. The administrator appeared because Li Changxian had previously made an agreement to order the administrator to open this door. But the administrator made excuses that it violated the rules and regulations of an administrator. But Li Changxian didn't believe it was that easy. He said, "You can modify the rules to your heart's content. If you don't want me to be reluctant, give you to write a report." Hearing that, the administrator did as Li Changxian wanted. The administrator opened the door. When he opened the door, the administrator's face smiled broadly as if suspicious. Then he told Li Changxian to enter. When the door closed, the administrator laughed evilly. Inside the boss room, the boss monster tries to take over Li Changxian's body. Li Changxian's eyes turned red and the system notification said endure to the end and destroy the gold chest that is on the altar. Because Li Changxian tried to fight, the boss monster was angry. Outside the boss's room, the administrator was laughing happily. He said, "The mission of this boss's room is very simple. Protect your mind from this dungeon monster." But what I saw was a monster. From this dungeon is the greatest evil mind Basla. How can a weak rock like him survive? When he wanted to leave this place, the administrator was stopped when he saw a system notification that said has been activated. Your mind is protected from all kinds of mental attacks. Inner peace has been activated. Your mental protection grows stronger. The dungeon conquest was successfully completed. It was seen that Li Changxian was in first place of the dungeon ranking. Dungeon is about to close. The administrator was surprised to see that. Seeing Li Changxian on the altar with a key in his hand, dungeon will be completely closed.